Hi there, I'm Andre from Peak Motorcycles and I'm here at EICMA 2025. And as you can see behind me, I'm here at the Benda stand, that's B-E-N-D-A, which is an unusual name, but I think it's one we are going to be hearing a lot more of in the coming days. Now, they've been at the show the last few years. I have done a few videos from Benda before, but they have a few new and really quite interesting motorcycles here this year. So I'm going to show you what they've got and see what you think. So first up is this Benda Rock, which looks like a big bike. It is a V-twin. Want to guess the displacement? I mean, it looks like a proper full-size motorcycle with those chunky wheels. It's a 125. It is a 125 V-twin, which I know some of you will probably turn your noses up at, but if you can only ride a 125, if you're a learner in the UK and that is something that is available to you, I think that is pretty interesting. Not a motorcycle, it is a snowmobile. It is a 1000cc snowmobile. That thing is massive, looks extremely cool. If I lived somewhere snowy, I'm sure I would have snowmobiles in the winter and motorcycles for the summer. Here we have the Napoleon Bob. Again, a really nicely finished bike. They had these at the ABR. The front end looks a little bit like a girder fork, but it's actually a conventional fork underneath. But lovely fit and finish on them. That one's just a 500cc V-twin. That's the 250 Napoleon Bob. But again, super nicely finished. Even up to the switch gear and the dash. I mean, the dashes have just been getting better and better as the screen quality improves. This one does actually have that sort of unusual sort of shock arrangement with the conventional fork underneath and that girder arrangement just to flex the forward, front and back. Right then, this is now in some new stuff. So this is Benda's V4 Dark Flag Commander. Now in V4s, I'm sure you're wondering exactly what the displacement might be on that bike. Does it look big? I mean, it does look like a big and a proper bike with air suspension. And did anybody guess that this is a 500cc V4, which I think would just absolutely fly. Here we have the interestingly named Chinchilla, which is another 500cc twin, and yeah, looks kind of cool. Cruisers aren't really my thing, but I can certainly see how that might appeal to some, especially those with shorter legs. Here we have a yellow version of the Chinchilla. Now this one's a little bit different. Can you spot what's missing on this side? If you have, yeah, even on this 350 cruiser from Benda, there is no gear shift. So this has a CVT. So it's not a clutchless system, it is just a CVT transmission, which yeah, looks kind of cool. Again, if you like these bikes and you don't want to change gear, maybe this is for you. Here we have another version of Dark Flag, but this one is actually getting bigger. This is a 950, which looks kind of cool. This one's up on the stage. Right then, this is perhaps the most interesting bike I think that Benda have here on the stand. So this is the P51. Now there's a few things on here that you should know. So you might notice that even though it looks like quite a big muscular bike, it has quite a skinny back wheel, and it does, and that's because this bike is a mere 250. Not only is it a 250, it is a 250 boxer, and if that looks kind of big for a 250 boxer, it's because it also has underneath here, I believe, a battery pack and a motor. So this thing is actually a 250 boxer hybrid. It makes 100 Newton meters of torque from 62 horsepower out of that 250 from the two drivetrains combined. And altogether that gives you a 0 to 60 time of 3 seconds. So, if anyone is doubtful about electric motorcycles, I certainly think that there is a future here with hybrids. And I think that works really well for a hybrid. I'm just going to give you a look here at the front end. So you can see that just how nicely finished that is. It does actually have that conventional fork in there. Slightly interesting looking front light. But as they come up and over, you see the bar end mirrors on there. These side cowlings must be the heat shield for that boxer. As I come down underneath, I'm guessing that must be the motor for the hybrid. Really close look at that. See the exhaust manifold just dropping down underneath. So that must be just the wiring. It's not a heat shield at all. I think that must be the air intake that's feeding the boxer twin from up there. Just going to give you another look around this side of the bike because I really think it is worth having a close look. See that swing arm? That fairly small rear wheel, and as they come down this side, as you see, it's got no gear shift. I'm guessing that must be related to how the hybrid is actually charged. Yeah, and I come up and over the top of the bike, as you can see, there is a huge amount of attention in this. It looks like it's all ready to have a tank bag fitted to it. It certainly comes with cruise control. Switchable ABS. I mean, even the dash looks pretty nice, those bar end mirrors. Now, one thing you might not have seen on the other side, and probably haven't seen here either, is the exhaust pipe. Bear in mind, this is just a 250, and it took me a while to find it, but in case you're wondering, I think that in there, that is the outlet from the exhaust pipe. And the only reason I say that is if I come around the other side, you can see the heat shield coming up from there, going in, and that must be catalytic converter in there as well. So yeah, really quite an incredible bike. Yeah, these sorts of things aren't normally my sort of bike. I normally focus on the more sort of adventure and trail, but it is amazing to see what companies like Benda are coming up with. Back to something a little bit more conventional. When I say a little bit more conventional, I mean this thing is huge. I mean, if you look at the profile on that rear wheel, that rear tyre, you'd think that that must be some absolute monster of an engine in there. Certainly the bike itself looks super imposing with that big wide tank, although actually it's just a 700cc tucked away in there behind all that bodywork. The last few things they have on the stand are some ATVs and UTVs, which I don't really focus on, but that 1000cc thing is actually pretty big. That's quite a monster. Yeah, you certainly sit very high up. And then a UTV, I know that CF Motor and a few other brands have now started doing these, very popular sort of farm transporters. That one does actually look very tall, pretty high, powered by a V-twin. Certainly a fairly big degree of comfort inside. Just looking at that dash and that centre console, not to mention just how big and high that rear bed is. Coming around the last few bikes they have here, there's a 550 quad and then another 500 up there. And I think that pretty much rounds out the Benda stand. So there you have it. That is my very quick look around the Benda stand here at EICMA 2025. Some really interesting bikes here. I mean, this thing I think is nuts. 250 hybrid that makes 62 horsepower, 100 newton meters of torque, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. I mean, it's yeah, it's amazing. Anyway, these are the sorts of things I come to the show to see, so I hope that's been interesting and useful. If it has, please check out my other content and maybe I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.